Welcome to the Edinburgh Fringe. And today, a reminder of resilience and how it can be captured in the theatre. Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. The weekend is approaching here in Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland, and for August, the capital of the arts world. The end of the week is here on Friday and Saturday night. So if you're in Edinburgh, you realise this is the big 2 nights for all of the performers. So book early and book often if things are of interest or you want to experience or you want to take a chance. And if you're outside of Edinburgh, and I know that many of our listeners are, then go check your local theatre, the arts group, and see what's happening and have that own experience of excitement, discovery, emotion and power. It's all over the world. It's focused on Edinburgh, but you will find it everywhere. Now, today we're going to listen to the story from Annie Lareau as she talks about her life, which she's bringing to the Fringe in the show Fuselage. It's actually making its debut here in Edinburgh. Annie was meant to be flying home from the UK with 35 university classmates for Christmas back in 1988. They changed to an earlier flight, but Annie, who couldn't afford the fee, stayed behind as her friends boarded Pan Am 103, a flight where a bomb explosion crashed the aircraft onto the Scottish town of Lockerbie. This ensemble piece threads Annie's life with that of the people of Lockerbie, the scrutiny of the terrorist incident, how Annie faced debilitating grief, panic attacks and nightmares in the years afterwards. And it's also a look at treasuring moments and relationships in an unpredictable and sometimes cruel world. Joining me now, Annie Lareau on the podcast. Annie, welcome to the Edinburgh Fringe Show.
Thank you so much.
Been to Edinburgh before?
I have, actually. I've been for the last 3 years because my husband has a show that's become quite popular at the Fringe called Dr. Kaboom. His real name is David Epley. So I've attended and been one of his roadies, watching him perform for families and children, his science comedy show. So this is not my first time, but my first time performing.
Did you just leave "this is not my first rodeo" hanging in the air?
No, I said I was a roadie, but it's not my, it is also, it is not also not my first rodeo.
Okay, it is a very different type of piece that you're bringing to the Fringe this year than
Absolutely.
David. Tell us about Fuselage.
Fuselage is based on my memoir, which I started writing in 2019. It's regarding my experience with Pan Am 103 exploding over Lockerbie, Scotland. At the time, I was a student at Syracuse University, and we were studying theatre in London for the semester. And through a variety of circumstances, I ended up putting most of my friends on the plane, but not getting on myself. So I was left in London when it happened. It's taken me 30 years to be able to speak and write about it truthfully and from a sincere place. And so I've written a memoir that took about 5 years to write. I'm currently trying to get it published, but also under a lot of pressure because I'm in the theater world. People have been asking, why haven't I decided to make it a theatrical piece? And once I visited the Fringe, watching my husband's show, I realized that if I were going to do that, if I were going to create an adaptation for the stage, that Edinburgh was the perfect place to do it because we share this story in our bones, both the country and myself and other people from Syracuse we lost 35 classmates. I lost 35 classmates on that bombing. And so it's just very intimate knowledge of that experience that we share across the pond. And so when I decided to do it, it was the Edinburgh Fringe that really called to me.
Was there a moment or another piece at the Fringe that suddenly opened up that avenue to you to give you almost the permission to address this in theatre?
It was interesting. It wasn't any particular piece. I did see originally last year, I saw a lot of sort of one person pieces, just because originally, although that's not what I've done here, I was originally thinking about it as a one person piece. And I thought, oh, I can do this. I can do this well. I've spent, let me back up a little bit. I've spent 30 years adapting literature for the stage in Seattle, Washington. I work for a company called Book It Repertory Theater. I've directed a great deal of literature for the stage. So it's always been in my brain to be able to adapt literature. And after seeing a few shows, I realized that I would be able to do this. I wasn't sure at first. So it wasn't one particular show. But I walked away from last summer thinking, I really think I could do this. And then it really evolved into, I do not want to do it as a one person piece. I think it's larger than that. It's more theatrical than that. It has more to tell and more in it that is about connections to people that I wanted to encapsulate on stage. So now it's a 3-person piece. So, yeah, it wasn't really one particular moment. It was just sort of the whole experience of finally understanding that this was the time.
I can only begin to presume how much the Pan Am 103. I don't even know what to call it here. How do you refer to it?
Well, I think it's interesting. In the United States, it's really referred to Pan Am 103 terrorist bombing, and in Scotland and in the UK, it's considered Lockerbie, right? So because it was where it was most affected. So I sort of combine the both because both my story actually encapsulates both. Because in 2019, right before I started writing the book, I finally went to Lockerbie for the first time. It had taken me 30 years to be able to face Lockerbie, because I think in all of that time, to me, Lockerbie was a place on fire. But, it lived in my brain as a place where 259 people lost their lives mid-flight. My friends' bodies were scattered across the landscape, 11 people on the ground. It had that holier than thou sense of largesse that I couldn't bring my emotional self to face. And it really wasn't until 2019, which was the 30th anniversary of the bombing, in which I became very exhausted by the press and their focus on who did it, the bombers, the geopolitical situations, and not the people and their stories, that brought me to start to write, to really tell my story of the people that I lost, their vibrant lives, and my own survival after, as well as others who kind of had to come out the other end in what was, at least in the United States, a very large media explosion of, because it was an international tragedy. It was the first time that Americans were targeted in a terrorist, civilians that were targeted in a terrorist attack, and surviving all of that in the eye of the media. So it wasn't until then that I was sort of ready to face it.
You talked earlier about connections and how this is no longer a one piece. How do you represent all the connections in a three-hander? Are we talking about amalgamation of characters? Or are we talking about a specific 3 people from the story?
I play myself throughout the piece, but the 2 other actors, a male and a female, play multiple characters, including my friends, including people from Lockerbie that I have now become very close with, dear friends with, over the years. I've now visited Lockerbie several times. They really encompass all the different people that surround me during that time, that I come into contact, that I have experience with, that I have friendships with, that I continue to have friendships with. So they really are the orbit around my story. and they flash in and out as different characters very quickly. There's also quite a large multimedia aspect to the piece. I brought in one of my dear collaborators who's a videographer and a lighting designer who has created an incredible multimedia landscape that goes along with the piece that sort of adds to that, as well as a sound designer, to sort of bring it to life, to bring the whole story to life, to give it breadth and depth, not just from my singular point of view, but from the point of view of those people I know that experienced it in Lockerbie the night of. A great example is when I went in 2019, I met a man named Colin Dorrance, who is a year younger than me. So he was 18 and I was 19 at the time of the explosion. He was a newly minted constable. He was driving to a Christmas party in Lockerbie. He lived just outside of Lockerbie. And the plane fell in front of him, like just mere kilometers in front of him, the main part that made the crater in Sherwood Crescent. And he's the first person I met in Lockerbie. His family took me in. We became dear friends. I've learned his story and how closely knit his story is with mine. Because if you think about it, 5 hours earlier, I put them on the planes, and he was very likely part of the recovery process, very likely processed the bodies of my friends, found their belongings, was very deeply involved in the investigation for months after. So you hear his story too, along with mine, from the other actors. So we sort of meld together. What I hope is the coming together of the two stories, the two experiences of this bombing back then.
Obviously, you can give consent to yourself to tell your story. How did you approach Colin about this?
Well, I let him read my entire memoir. So he has read it from cover to cover. He has given me feedback. He has given me permission. He has corrected things when I haven't gotten something, perfectly right. Very important to me to have those that I speak about be able to say yes or no to what I'm saying, because it isn't my story, it is their story as well. And that's extremely important to me, so that we can really try to represent the human side of this story. You'll notice that in recent, like the last couple of years, there's been an inundation of TV dramas, BBC, Netflix with Colin Firth, et cetera, which has been surprising, weirdly so. Like all of a sudden, there's been a bunch, but they've really represented the geopolitical side of things, like who did what, who thinks who did what, the sort of controversy around who did the bombing, and it leaves out, for the most part, the story of the human side of everything. And my piece is really focused on the people. I really wanted to be able to focus on the lives of the humans that were affected, not who did it. Because in the end, that didn't matter to me. It doesn't change the outcome for me about who put the bomb on the plane. It doesn't, and I'm only speaking for myself, but it doesn't provide an enormous amount of healing to know who did it, right? Or to know that so-and-so is in jail, because there is no clear answer at this point. And I don't know, honestly, if there ever will be. What's healing for me is to remember these people, to honor them, and to remind audiences and readers and everyone that life is precious, and people that are in your life and surround your life and you love, that you don't want to waste a moment of time being grateful for their presence, for being understanding the fragility of life and the gift you're being given, no matter how long you have someone in your life. And so that is really what I hope people walk away with when seeing this performance, that it's not a whodunit. It's not a let's, dive into the geopolitical reasons of even why it happened. It happened. It happened to a certain amount of people. And unfortunately, it happened to 35 Syracuse University students who were the ages of 19 and 20 at the cusp of adulthood, and what that meant for so many of us.
I am amazed by the strength you must have to have multiple Annie Lareaus in here, because there is the Annie Lareau that went through this. There is the Annie Lareau character that you have written. There's the Annie Lareau that everybody will see on stage. How, I mean, do you see that as three different people? Are all connected? Is it all you? How does that work as a creative?
I think I see it as one person, but perhaps three aspects of the same person. I also believe that I am an older actor, been around for a while. I've acted in a lot of work over the 35 years of my career. So I, I have worked to, and in particular in this piece, I have worked very hard to try to create a piece in which there is an entrance and an exit for me in terms of keeping myself safe and being able to enter a piece and leave it on stage. Because let's be honest, it's extremely emotional. This is the most emotional piece I've ever had to perform in my life. And we did a couple of workshop productions in Seattle, and I learned a great deal about navigating that for myself, and where I can get very, very emotional, and how to channel that and respect it and honor it, but also not let it overwhelm me on stage. I've chosen two actors to perform with me who are also dear friends, who are talented people, but know my story, are there for me, can hold that energy with me, and are very loving and respectful of the story. That helps to hold it. And, you know, it's taken 35 years to get here. I couldn't have written this piece 10 years out, even, 20 years out. I don't believe I could have written the book. I don't believe I could be performing it the way I am now. There's just a maturity, a growth, a perspective that I have gained over 35 years of living past it, that I can now share it and want to share it with others.
During those workshops, did you ever feel overwhelmed that it was still maybe too soon, or you just weren't in the right place that night to be able to look back?
To be honest, so we performed it 3 times for 3 workshop audiences who gave us feedback afterwards to help us sort of get to the point that we are now, that we are bringing the final product to the Fringe for a premiere. The first 2 out of the 3, I would say that the play had a hold of me. Like, there was times when I was very hard to navigate because I was so emotional, especially towards the end. But by the 3rd night, I found a rhythm within it that I felt like I was now a little bit more in control of the story and the path. But it took those workshop performances to start to find my way through my own emotional journey throughout the piece. So it's been interesting. And frankly, it will be interesting to perform it 25 times at 27 days. It's going to be a very interesting journey for me as an actor, as a writer, as a theatrical artist, to navigate what it will be like in Edinburgh. What I think will be interesting for me and enlightening is that when I did the workshops in the United States, many, many people do not remember Pan Am 103. It has been usurped in our cultural memory by 9/11. They do not remember that Pan Am came prior to 9/11. That is our cultural memory, our cultural touch point for terrorism for many Americans. In UK, in Scotland, it remains the largest terrorist attack in the UK history. It remains very prominent in the memory and the cultural history of the country. And I almost look forward to performing it for that audience, because I feel like their heart will be more understanding and more open to hearing stories, because it still remains so close to the surface.
Bringing this to Scotland, do you see that almost as a calling?
Actually, weirdly, yes, I do. I think last year it really called to me in a way that I really didn't expect it to. For the last 5 years, people have asked me why I was writing a book and not creating a play. And I always said that I felt that it belonged in a book. It was too large of a story for the stage. It was too much to do on the stage. And I sort of ran from that idea. And I do believe that the book is much more the whole story. I can only do so much in 70 minutes on stage. But once I spent time at the Edinburgh Fringe and really started to allow myself the ability to even imagine the possibility, it seemed to me that there was absolutely no other place that I should do this piece first, but at the Edinburgh Fringe, because it was the premier location in Scotland. It is, like I've said earlier, a story that I share with Scotland and the people of Lockerbie, and it seemed like the perfect place to do it.
Do you think you could ever watch somebody else take on your role in the play?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know yet. I mean, it depends on if it has a life after this. Um, uh, Perhaps, I think it would have to be changed a little bit, shifted. The narrative would have to be shifted a little bit because it is so personal. Um, I don't know. I think I'd have to cross that bridge when I would come to it, if I come to it. It's possible. It's not something that my brain has been able to process yet. Um, but I do think that it's an important story, not just because it's mine, not just because of the sort of international significance of it, but it is a story about resilience, and it's a story about recovery, and it's a story about cherishing those that you love in times of tragedy, or in reflection of tragedy. And I think that's really an important story that's not always told. Especially in events such as this.
Living with this every day, you must have reflections every day, but has Fuselage brought anything different to the surface for you that has changed?
It has. It has. It's funny, but the things that it has really brought to the surface and reminded me of, and the things I actually look forward to performing every night, are the fun, lovely, crazy times of our first years in university that I almost had forgotten about, under all of the tragedy, under the years of grief and recovery. And, you forget about that crazy moment you had with your flatmates doing X, Y, or Z, or that you were 18 living on your own for the first time and developing a new sense of what family and future would mean for you. And I've been able to remember those moments and recreate them and then relive them. So I have a great, I am very grateful to be able to experience those moments, those forgotten moments with my friends once again. And there is a lot of levity in the play, a lot of funny bits, a lot of remembering what the 80s were like. So there's a lot of fun there that I just was unexpected when putting it together and performing it, that I would feel that grateful to be able to relive those moments.
And there may well be people coming to the Fringe who, maybe directly or maybe once or twice removed, will have been impacted by Lockerbie, by Pan Am 103. You're not going to know that they're in the audience, but you must, at a performer level, realize that there may be people in the audience that are going to have a much deeper connection than normal theatre goers.
Yes, I hope so. I mean, I hope so in the sense that I hope I am able to touch their hearts in the same way that the story has touched mine. And I will say that what was really fascinating in the workshop productions in Seattle is that I had a number of people come up to me afterwards in tears and unable to really speak, who were 18 or 19 years old, not even alive at the time of Pan Am 103 bombing. the Lockerbie bombing, and would just want me to hug them or hold them or say a few words to them, that clearly it wasn't even the direct connection to Pan Am 103 or Lockerbie. It was the story itself that, for reasons that I wouldn't know, that they weren't ready to speak about to me. They just wanted to feel a connection with me and be connected to me because of that story. And that was probably the most profound thing that happened from those workshop productions.
That's very giving of you, especially as you will be coming off a theatre piece that is so demanding.
I think it's required of me because I am evoking a great deal in this story in many ways. And I feel a responsibility that if I'm going to ask audiences to sit in the audience and experience my show and have an emotional reaction, that I need to be available to receive that emotional experience as much as they've been willing to receive mine.
Annie, it is an amazing decision you've made to bring this to the Fringe.
Thank you.
To me, it's one of the reasons Fringe Theatre in Edinburgh, Fringe Theatre all told around the world, is an important part of the fabric that we have in the arts. Where can people come and see Fuselage at the Fringe this year?
I will be performing the entirety of the Fringe at the Pleasance in the Above at 3:45 in the afternoon every day.
And we will have links direct into the box office back at our website, which is edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com. Annie, do you know what happens to Fuselage after the Fringe?
I do hope to tour it around the United Kingdom and possibly Europe. I would really love that and appreciate the opportunity to perform my story for as many people who are willing to see it.
And before then, of course, we have your website if people want to find out more information on this and on your other projects, which is
AnnieLareau.com.
And just as the box office, we will have a link back to that on our website as well. Annie, it's just such an emotional piece, a moving piece, and thank you for bringing it and choosing the Fringe to debut.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored.
Annie Lareau there. The show Fuselage is at Pleasance Courtyard at 3:45 every day through until the end of the Fringe. As always, links direct into the box office are back at our website, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com, and you'll find links to Annie's website there as well. Well, that is it. That is the weekend. We've still got two and a bit more weeks of the Fringe to go. So as I said, if you're in Edinburgh, this is the time to go out, find something new, find something reliable, and just take a chance in something else. And if you're elsewhere, find the local arts, find the theatre. Go find something engaging and creative to be part of. Wherever you are listening to us, if you're in a podcast, if you're on the radio, wherever, have a look around on your social networks, link, like, love, share, subscribe. You find us in all your favourite podcast apps. We're tucked away in YouTube as well. Just search for YouTube Ewan Spence and it will be there. And if you can, please consider leaving a review or popping a star rating and let everybody have a better chance of finding us in all of the world of content. But for now, thanks very much for your time. The weekend awaits. I'll see what I can find and bring it all back to you next week here on the Edinburgh Fringe Show. Ta-ra for now. You've been listening to the Edinburgh Fringe Show, hosted by Ewan Spence, produced by the Podcast Corner for Spence Media and Radio 6 International. Listen to more from the Fringe at edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com.